Hey everyone, welcome back to GameSpot's E3 demo stage here at E3 2017. Very excitingly, joining Peter and myself are Jens and Jarek from Machine Games here to talk about the big surprise at the end of Bethesda's press conference. It's Wolfenstein II. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How has the reaction been to the new classes?
It's been very good.
Yeah,
We
so
are-
far it's extremely positive. We're very happy with how people have responded.
We are so happy just to be here and show and talk about the game. After these couple of years now, or even more.
Is
It's
it
really
like a relief to have it out there?
Always.
Yes, it
Always.
is.
You
It's also
can,
a good thing for the team, to be able to talk about what they are working on.
yeah,
It's,
people come up, what are you working on? I can't say,
Right.
but finally everyone can.
But what I thought was great about the announcement was that it was done with a very sort of tongue-in-cheek sort of reveal, like the live action with Liesel the Panzerhund.
Yeah.
Where did that idea kind of come from to sort of balance out the very dark sort of the dark part of the story with this light-heartedness?
Right. I mean, it's always, of course, Wolfenstein has always leaned towards the absurd, and we're sort of always embracing that because we love that about it. But a lot of it comes from, the Nazis have, of course, conquered the world, but we haven't really delved into what happened in America in the first game. But this game is all about that. So it's all about how the Nazis are creating propaganda pieces and basically subverting the American mindset and keeping the oppression going.
From my mind, the antagonist, well, the sort of secondary antagonist from the first game is back, Frau Engel.
She's the
She's
main
looking
one in
the-
this one.
Yeah.
Now she's moving up the ranks.
She is.
Was it great to kind of have her back? Because she terrified me.
Yeah, she's scary. That's also just such a phenomenal actor, Nina Franacek, who plays Frau Engel. She's so good. But yeah, I mean, all in this game, we're for the first time we're doing a sequel. So we've been able to build upon all of the ideas because we always envisioned making it a trilogy. So we planted a lot of ideas in the first game that we're kind of cashing in this game, and Frau Engel is one of those where we set her up properly in the first one. And
How do you feel about continuing to push the darkness and the sort of the evil that permeates these games? Is that something that you guys really enjoy doing?
I think that's very much in our comfort zone. We've always gone pretty dark with our games,
Yeah.
and it's very, of course, super appropriate for Wolfenstein.
yeah.
But yeah, it is all the time that sort of contrast of really dark stuff, but also a lot of levity and crazy shit happening.
Yeah. How do you know when you've dialed it up enough? Because I feel like every moment of the trailer, once it really started going,
Yeah.
it's like every other scene was just like, God, that's so impressive, and I just it seems like there's an abundance of creativity, which must be great, but also you probably just always want to just keep going, right? When do you hit that ceiling and say, okay, maybe we shouldn't go too crazy?
I don't know. I don't think we really approach it that way. I mean, we are fortunate enough to have a publisher that lets us do what we want to
Yeah.
do. And I think there's a lot of room for crazy in this IP. But at the same time, we always wanted to feel grounded, So even though things are over the top and they're extraordinary, they're also very domestic in a way and very, I wouldn't say realistic, of course, but truthful or honest. And
Sure. So has your approach to storytelling changed now that you're working on a sequel?
not really, but it's more that we're able to build from our own foundation this time around. Like everything that we established, all of the returning characters, all of that, from a story perspective, we can just keep building on those, right? Because we love our characters, but also, of course, it's amazing to have the actors that we worked with. They're all coming back, and they're super enthusiastic because they saw everything came out the last time around, and yeah, it's just amazing.
I think if you finished Wolfenstein, you might be surprised that BJ Blazkowicz is back, because it looked pretty dicey for him at the end there.
Yeah, and it is pretty dicey in the beginning of this game for sure.
He's pretty broken.
Yeah, he's at death's door basically when the game starts. But so in the first game, you took over this Nazi nuclear aircraft carrying submarine, the Eva's Hammer, which is the biggest submarine in the world, and that's sort of your resistance base now for this game. But at the start of the game, there's like a prologue, and then the first sort of real gameplay level is when the Nazis are invading the submarine. So that whole level is played because BJ can't stand up; he's so worn out. So all of that is wheelchair combat.
Wheelchair combat. A phrase I never thought I would hear. That's quite nice. It's quite. There's a nice symmetry to at the beginning of Wolfenstein, right? Because he's been in his coma and he's obviously weakened,
Right,
being
right.
nursed back to health before the Nazis descend.
Right. Yeah.
Was
for
that a
sure.
conscious thing?
Of course. I mean, we spend so much time mapping out the plot and all of the how all of the character arcs, all of that. So there's like nothing left to chance really. Like we're really meticulous of the scenes that we do, and a lot of it, I think, also the thing you talked before about, sort of the creativeness side of things. Like we look at it, we always try to see what the scene is doing, because it has to fill a number of gameplay and there's an exposition side to it, there's a character side to it, but it's also are we looking forward to realizing it? Like if we read the scene and we don't feel like this scene is going to be so fun to record, then we rewrite it or we throw it out. So everything that we record is things that we look forward to recording.
To what extent do you get catharsis from turning against hate groups such as Nazis and the KKK, which we saw in this trailer as well? I mean, there seemed to be quite a bit of tone here in terms of like, fuck these guys.
It's an interesting word because that's actually the theme for this story is catharsis. And that's not just for the player and for BJ, but it's for all the characters in the game and in their various ways.
So piggybacking off that, is it not kind of, because I imagine you have to do a ton of research into the atrocities and what, I mean, ultimately until it ended, up until what the Nazis were planning, and of course the KKK very similar in what they will do to other people. Is that not kind of depressing to have to read up on and
it's very depressing. It really
footage
is.
of and
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that are like that. Like we recently made a big overhaul of our gore system, and researching gore is not so fun either.
try to explain that to IT about why you're looking.
I assure you that we are on every terrorist watch list because like every other Google that we do is Nazi something or other.
What do you look to in terms of inspiration? When I was watching the trailer, it looked like one of the characters, the sort of German commandant, reminded me a lot of,
Inglourious Bastards.
Hans Landa, but also Friedrich Zoller, the sniper at the top of the tower, because he's very, when he was hitting on the girl, and he was very cocky and self-assured, and it seems like in your interpretation of Nazis, they all have that kind of cruelty and cocky.
Well, I think it's more about making sure that the resistance is, or the opposition is at your own level. Like it's more fun to overcome an obstacle if they are as smart and as terrifying as possible, as opposed to turning them into jokes or portraying them as weaker, right? So we always and that's I always look for every character. When me and my writing partner Tommy writes what they say and what they do, it's always like with their best interest in mind. Like we always put ourselves in their shoes and we try to make it as strong as possible from their perspective, right?
Oh, I thought you had something to say.
No, I'm sorry. No, it's just crazy to think about that these are themes that using Nazis, right? Like I don't know. It's nice to be able to just shoot them, but back to your point, like it's such a crazy thing to have to keep revisiting, But so now that you're in America, what is particularly American about their activities in the sequel? How do they sort of adopt their location to what they do?
Yeah, we always. So this game, it's about So the plan from the point of view of the resistance is to liberate America and use that as a platform to liberate the rest of the world. And to do that, you have to create alliances with other resistance groups who are sort of isolated, and work together to ignite a revolution. I had something else to say about your question, but I forgot it. What can you what was that?
So being in America, right?
Oh yeah.
Geography is very different, technology, all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
and the thing is, but more importantly, from our point of view, is the cultural differences, where America is very much founded on the idea of freedom,
Right.
and Nazi oppression is, of course, the opposite of that. So it's quite a big propaganda project from the Nazi regime to try and subvert that American mindset. So a lot of, and that's amazingly fun to work with, because how they, you get to see all of these Americanisms, but all of it's kind of perverted from a Nazi perspective.
Right.
So that's fun.
It's interesting seeing, obviously, The Man in the High Castle has been a book that's been around for countless years, and now to see it come into a TV show, you kind of look at it and see, oh, they did it that way, and we're doing it this way. Because obviously, that the show and the book are very straight-laced.
Right. Well, I mean, the core concept is the same. Nazis won the war, right? But I try to stay away from other fiction along those lines, because I feel like we want to do our own thing. So that's been the approach. I haven't seen it, but what's funny about it is that a lot of our German actors are also involved in that show. So.
Oh, really?
Do they feel strange as a German actor, sort of portraying Nazis? You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's a lot on their history.
Yeah, I mean, some of our actors, like when they are told what the part is about, they're like, no, that's not for me, right? So, but the people that we cast are people that are really, like, our cast is amazing. Like every single person that we cast is just shockingly good, and I think it's interesting for them too to go in that mindset, because, of course, if you're German, then you have this sort of baggage, right? And I think for them it's also cathartic to deal with that baggage.
Yeah.
Are there any demands, like when you bring this to the German, ratings boards or anything that maybe feel different?
Yeah, I mean, we sanitize the game in Germany. There are a lot of signs and symbols that we sanitize. So there is a different version in that sense, but on that level, it's not different in terms of gameplay or anything like that. It's just the forbidden symbols that we.
But even does the story itself change? Like, is it?
No.
Not in any.
Yeah, that'd be a very big.
No, it's some part of the dialogues and words that we have to replace, of course, but the story doesn't change.
So now we're in America. Which areas of America have you specifically targeted? Where are we going to be visiting?
We're going to be in New York, New Orleans, and Roswell. Those are the ones you have seen in the trailer.
Yes.
So
I was going to say, I did see that crocodile, that gator.
That's just outside New Orleans.
Yeah. So basically, in this game, they've turned New Orleans into a ghetto. So they built this huge wall around it, and people in there are kind of left to fend for themselves.
Right. And how will we be traveling around? So we're still in the giant submarine.
Yeah, and obviously because of that, you can target like basically anywhere you want.
So the submarine is basically the hub. It is the hub for this game. That's a very good thing for us as well, because we are, evolving that a bit since the last game. So now we can use the hub to be able to travel back to locations you've previously been to as well. So you can revisit locations to just replay combat scenarios, find collectibles. And for us, that's a big thing, that we can the player can stay in the game and like complete the game to 100% within the game, rather than going out to the main menu and do it through the chapter browser.
So is that replaying, like you'd have to replay the mission, or you can just go back and
No, you
revisit
can just
the
go
area?
back and revisit the area
right.
and continue playing, often under different circumstances as well, since you've been there before. This time when you come back, it might be night, it might be day, it might be, you have done some
Changes.
You have destroyed some stuff, and of course it's been that changed the environment. So, and that's a really nice thing. So basically the player can stay in the game for as long as they want.
I'm always so struck by the weapon and mechanical design in your games. How big is the team behind that? Like, how much research goes into these creations, because they look so much familiar.
Obscene amount.
Yeah, I know. But we do have a really good team that we call the TGE team, the Through the Gun Experience team.
Okay.
It's not super big, but they are extremely talented, and of course their sole focus is that through the gun experience, and of course that's the core element of this game. So we focus a lot on it.
It's
so
all
that-
about making
just that feeling. Yeah.
the first person, the feeling of combat, and all of that visceral stuff about running around, like what really is sort of the bread and butter of a shooter. We've invested so much time and effort into bringing that up to.
How the way you are able to control the player within the environments and to perform combat and make sure that it's always super grounded and strong. That's something we work a lot with.
But it's interesting too, because we're not really like we don't. The game is a shooter, but we don't think about it as a shooter. It's much more of an action adventure game, like an Uncharted or a Last of Us, that type of thing, where it has a tremendous amount of story and the gameplay is really tightly intertwined with the story.
I was going to say, in terms of what we saw in the trailer, like BJ had this incredible sort of morphing armor, like a metal arm. Where did that come from?
That's something we also introduced in the first game. So, but it's the same thing there. We seeded it there, so it's ready for us now.
So that was the advanced technology aspect that was.
Yeah, I can get really deep into the lore, but this might not be the forum for it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you kind of wished you could have done in the first game that you're going to introduce into the second game?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean there are a few things. I mean
like
the district
full
things,
body.
Yeah, the play full body is one thing, and that's something as well. We talked about the through the gun team, and now for the first game we just had a view model, the floating view model, but we are going back to full body now. I'm saying going back because we did it in Riddick in the Darkness. So and just to get that even more immersive and seamless experience. So that's a big thing for us.
Yeah.
Another thing is that we allow the player now to freely duel with weapons in different combinations, which is also super fun. In the order we were limited to just duel with the same type of weapons.
What was the thinking behind that limitation the first time? Why did your philosophy change?
It was just too much work for us.
Really, yeah.
It's a big effort that goes into that. It doesn't sound that much, but it's a huge amount of work in terms of animation and
Dealing with the physics of it all.
And just all the different
Reload
animations is just an insane amount.
Yeah.
And also you have a handgun in one hand and a rifle in another, and make that work together is a lot of work. But it's also fun, and not even just when you're going down spacing with shotguns or battle rifles, but also it also works well when you sneak around. You can have a silence weapon in one hand, and then you have a powerful backup weapon in the other if you should get detected. So it's very rewarding and fun, and that's a very good addition for the game. It's a way we up the combat a bit.
One of the things I loved about the first game is the different routes to your objective that you could take. Has more thought been put into that? Because that was incredible. I mean, like I remember infiltrating a castle and sort of like peering behind a thing and sneaking through grates and taking on a commandant when he didn't even know I was there. Or I could have come through the door, all guns blazing.
And that's something that we also worked a lot with now, because we also liked it a lot, and that's something that we loved about the first game, that you could do those alternative routes and you can approach the combat scenarios in different play styles. So with this game we do that for all the combat scenarios. So there's it's really fun.
There's a lot of freedom in how you can approach a combat scenario, and you can do it from different ways. And our stealth is also a little bit different from other stealths in the sense that if things go wrong, you can always fall back on blasting, right? So I just love that feeling of going into a scenario, trying to be, strategic, and then if something goes wrong, I just go into mayhem mode.
What was some of the feedback from the first game that maybe surprised you and has influenced your work on the sequel?
I don't know if we really think about it that way, but
Screw the fans, right?
No, but no, for sure not. We love our fans. I think they're the best fans any game developer can have. But it's more about, like, whenever we put something out, it's something that we feel really strongly about and that we are really proud of. And I think that's kind of the approach you have to have as a creator, because otherwise you're just going into depressions whenever you hear something negative, right? So we just try to make sure that what we put out there is the best possible game we could have done.
But that is one of the things that you mentioned, with different approaches and on the combat scenarios, and that's also one of the reasons we made sure that we can do that in every combat scenario in this game. So that's one of those things.
There were a lot of secrets in the first game. Was there anything that you put in there that people didn't find, or didn't find until a very long time after the game?
That's my favorite question to ask.
Yeah, I'm like,
After game's been out for a while.
Yeah, but you're always surprised how quick people find things, even though you hide them so.
they'll never crack that code.
Yeah, but they will.
More secrets this time around? I mean, is that something?
It's a lot of
doing?
we have a lot of that. We are. It's a part of the Wolfenstein DNA. With it's finding secrets. So it's a lot of them. Yeah. And now we also, through the districts, we have the opportunity to be able to go back and collect secrets that you didn't find when just playing through the narrative.
In terms of the other characters who are going to be coming into play, so you've got obviously BJ Blazkowicz, and you have his Anya, who's pregnant, which is lovely, little surprise there. But who are the other characters who will be meeting and sort of bringing into this resistance?
The whole gang is back, so everyone from the first game is back in this game, and then of course as we discover new resistance groups and you kind of convince or coordinate with them to join up, then it just grows from there, right? So the submarine is not very populated in the beginning of the game, but as you make contact with other resistance groups, it gets a lot more populated and lots of people.
We'll be talking about them at a later date, I imagine. Exactly who's going to be coming aboard?
Well, in the two of the big resistance leaders are in the trailer. One of them is Grace Walker, who runs a resistance group in New York, and the other one is a character called Horton.